Picture this. An engineering student in Singapore watches a TV show and decides to completely change his career path. Fast forward, and he's now helping shape the future of psychology education. Sounds like fiction? Stay tuned because it's just another day in the life of Dr. Brian Law, psychology lecturer at James Cook University. Professionally Psyched is the podcast that brings you cutting-edge psychology research and real-world insights from our psych community of clinicians, researchers, and educators alike. We're here to explore how psychology shapes our everyday lives and impacts the world around us. Hi everyone and welcome to Professionally Psyched. I'm Jessica Muller, PhD candidate in Public Health at James Cook University, and before we get started we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record, and for me today that's the Bindal and Wulgurukaba peoples. And I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and cultures from wherever you may be tuning in from across the country. We are thrilled to be bringing you another great episode, and whether you're a psychology student, an educator, or simply curious about the evolving world of psychology research, this episode is for you. Join fourth year JCU psychology student Niki Lyons as she chats with Dr. Law to explore the challenges of fostering student connection in online education and why it matters, exciting and ethical ways AI is transforming psychology learning, and tips for aspiring researchers. So grab your headphones and join us as we hear about Dr. Law's experiences from Singapore to Australia, from new mums to generative AI in education, and all things in between. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Niki Lyons. I'm a fourth year JCU student in psychology, and today I'm joined by Brian Law.
Hi, I'm Brian Law. I'm a lecturer in psychology. I primarily teach in the Graduate Diploma of Psychology Bridging Program, which is a postgraduate program. I'm also the academic advisor for that particular program. I originally came from Singapore, which is where home is for me. I moved to Australia to pursue my postgraduate studies and ended up staying and working. Plan was to go home, but I stayed.
Okay, nice. So what inspired you to get into the field of psychology in the first place?
Believe it or not, it's because of a series which a lot of listeners, if they are psychology buffs, would be quite interested in. It's Criminal Minds. So I was actually on the path to become a electrical and electronic engineer. And so in Singapore, you actually have to serve in the army once you reach the age of 18. So while serving in the army before university, I watched Criminal Minds, got really into it, and then asked myself, is engineering really something I want to do for the rest of my life? Probably not, but psychology is really something that seemed to interest me, how they try to analyze behaviors, trying to figure out what people's motivations are. So that really drew me. So I was like, all right, you know what? I think psychology might be something that I'm really interested in. So I applied for psychology and fortunately managed to get in.
Oh, lucky for us, really. You've been involved in several types of research. What was the first sort of research that you started with?
So primarily my research has always been applied focus. I'm not the kind of person who would appreciate or enjoy being in a laboratory setting 24/7, doing very controlled research. So I've always been, if I want to do research, I want to see how it has an impact on people's lives. So that's where I kind of started off. During my PhD, that's where everything started for me. I actually looked at helping first-time mums through their first pregnancy. And because of that, we developed a intervention program for first-time mums. So it's a peer support program where we had experienced moms pair up with new moms and providing them with peer support. So I could actually see during that phase where we're delivering that intervention how it helped improve moms' moods, reduce anxiety, depression, made them more confident. So I could really see the impact, and that's what drove me to continue in this area of research, which is really satisfying for me.
That's quite rewarding to see your research in action straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a place for primary research where you investigate things in a laboratory setting. But for me, that's just not what I'm drawn to. I need that feedback from participants, seeing it having an impact on them. That really just continues to drive me and get that sense of reward that I get when I see people's lives being better. And that's why I continue to do what I do.
So what's the current research you're working on?
After I've completed my PhD and did a little bit of work, research associate, I then got this job at JCU. So I moved across, and that was in 2020 when COVID first hit and the whole world was locked down. So I was up in Townsville for a year and a half. And because the course that I teach in is fully online, I could really see how, well, COVID for one, that probably made it harder, but how students, when they are spread across different places and not having a physical location for them to get together, that really had an impact on their levels of motivation, how engaged they are, how connected they are with their fellow students, which is typically something that you maybe take for granted when you're on campus, right? Because you're there, you see people, you're forced into the classroom, you say hi, you start to make friends, and you form a bit of a community. So when you need help, there's support. But it's not quite the same with online. People just jump in, they do their content online, they drop out, and that's it. They don't necessarily have to speak to people. But when they actually feel like they need that support or they want to look for support, then they don't know where to go because there's no avenue for them. So because of that, it became a bit of interest from that point, because I find that students need that sense of connectedness or a sense of belonging with the course and with their fellow course mates in order for them to be more successful in their course. Because the more connected you are, the more emotionally invested, then chances are you're going to be more engaged, more motivated, probably going to be doing a lot better as well. So that's what I want for my students. So that's how it shifted in terms of topic for me, but still really apply because I still want to see the benefits to the students if I can almost immediately.
Yeah, I'm currently involved in a hybrid program, so I see a big difference between doing online and then internal and coming and meeting students. So there's obviously a lot of challenges. You do feel isolated when you're doing online. So what's the feedback that you get from people that are doing courses online, what they are experiencing as far as isolation, lack of motivation? What do you hear from students?
Students typically say that and what we have is some discussion boards where it's just student only. So you'll see them trying to reach out to other students, say, hey, you know what, is there anyone in Brisbane? Can we get together? It feels frustrating sometimes that I feel like I'm the only one that's trying so hard and, sometimes just not meeting expectations. And they just want to have a place where they can kind of vent in some way because, they feel frustration. But at the same time, they want people to know that they're not alone. So kind of like a shared experience, it's just like, oh, I'm struggling, but this person's struggling too. I'm not the only one. Everyone's feeling that this is actually quite hard. So it actually helps make them feel better. So these are some of the things that I tend to hear quite a bit from students who are online.
So the exciting thing about psychology, it's always evolving. So how do you see in the future with the research you're doing, how that will evolve as far as technology advancements go?
Yeah, so I think one of the trending topics is Gen AI, and that has had a huge impact across, it's not just the education industry, but across all different industries. With the introduction of Gen AI, there are a lot more opportunities for students. They can use it in various different ways, whether it's helping them improve their work, whether it's helping them to generate ideas. Those are things that can really help them. And that extends to researchers and for teachers as well, because it's not restricted to students that can use the technology, right? Everyone can use it. Now, I think the challenge at this point is really about how we can help students learn how they can best still develop the skills that we want them to develop, because, coming to tertiary education, we expect graduates to have certain attributes. We want you to be ready for careers after you've completed your course. So how can we still ensure that students are still able to develop those skills, but at the same time capitalizing on technology such as Gen AI? So I think that's one of the biggest challenges going forward in the educator's perspective, how we can actually teach them what kind of strategies that we can use to apply on students so that they can still develop those skills, but at the same time really use Gen AI to help improve themselves. Give you an example. If we are talking about improving writing skills, something that's really important for tertiary education, especially in psychology. As you're a psychology student, you would know how challenging it can be sometimes. So if you think about ChatGPT, it can be like almost like a personal tutor, right? If I put in, for example, a paragraph that I've written into ChatGPT and tell it, can you make it more concise? And then ChatGPT spits something out. I compare what it has written compared to what I've written. I can identify then, hey, this is the areas that actually I'm using too many words. I can actually be more succinct in this area. And I realize that this is kind of a tendency that I have. Whenever I describe something like this is what I tend to do. So then I get that feedback. I know what to change. So subsequently, when I actually write, then I'm more careful and that changes how I write. So this is developing my skills rather than, hey, ChatGPT, just write this essay for me. Then I don't learn anything. So I think it's how we approach this is really important, and trying to communicate that to students as well is really important, especially in the course that I teach in, because a lot of them are shifting from, a primary career to psychology. So there's a lot of investment involved. Time, commitment, because a lot of them have families that they're working as well, money obviously, so they want to get to the end point quick. And because of that, there's always the temptation to say, hey, you know what, least time I need to spend on it, most efficient way, best way I can get my grades, let's do that. There's always a temptation to do that. We're just human. It's something that we will tend to do. but helping them recognize that, yes, you might be able to do that now, but when you get out and you actually have to see clients, you have to work in an area of research and you don't develop those skills, you are going to struggle a lot. And that's where, whether it's you regret that you chose to take the easy way out, or you blame the education system for not actually structuring it so that it helps you learn how to use technology in a more ethical manner, then it's a bit too late because you already passed that point. So trying to intervene and helping students recognize that importance of, skill development, but at the same time, maximizing the potential and capability of Gen AI. It's key thing that we need to keep in mind moving forward in this area.
As you said, it's not just about getting the marks and the assignments in. It's about also preparing you to enter the workforce.
Exactly. And again, coming back to how challenging psychology as a discipline is, especially for those aspiring to be clinical psychologists or registered psychologists, the number of spaces realistically is small. So everyone is trying to get every advantage that they can. And part of it is getting really, really good grades. So, that temptation is just really strong, especially for our discipline. So trying to instill that importance of skill development, whether if it's writing, students might feel like, I'm going to be a clinical psychologist, I'm not going to be writing essays, but still telling them that it's a bit about discipline as well, right? Because if you can't follow basic rules of using technology ethically, how can we then expect you to behave ethically with clients as well? So they need to see that there is some application and some mirroring of how it actually is going to happen in real life.
Thanks for that. Just in summary, what would be your advice to people that are maybe considering a career in research?
Right. So I think in research, there are a lot of avenues you can take. The fun part about research is if you have it on good terms with your supervisor, or if you're embarking on a PhD, you have a lot of freedom over topics that you want to do. I think that's a key feature and something that's really important to consider as you step into research, because it can be quite challenging because you're stepping into the unknown. Most of the time, you're at the forefront of whatever research that you're doing. So when I was starting off doing my PhD, my supervisors weren't completely familiar with the stats methods that I was going to use. They were like, sorry, Brian, this is as far as we can go. You need to look for courses to, just upskill yourself to learn the different ways that you can do analysis and get in touch with experts who actually know how to use that kind of analysis. Now, if you don't have that passion for the area of research that you want to do, you'll be like, oh, this is too difficult, just drop out. So you really need to have that interest. It was really that interest that drove me to like, all right, you know what? I'm going to just sign up for this course, figure out how to use this, speak to people, email people who are strangers to me, but they're experts at doing it, and just ask the questions, get them to look at my output, just figure stuff out. So once you found your area that you are really interested in, then you are more likely to really pursue it and obviously excel in it as well. So anyone who wants to step into research, the first thing is figure out what it is that interests you, and then hopefully find a supervisor that shares that interest with you as well. Second step is just go ahead and do it. You just need to take that step and actually embark on research to see if it's something for you. Obviously, research is not for everyone. Some people love it, some people hate it. But if you're like me and you really like to see an impact of what you do, then maybe the applied route is something that you want to pursue, because that is probably the quicker way to see a positive impact of your actual research.
Thanks very much for your insights and advice, and thanks for joining us today. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Professionally Psyched. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the ongoing support of our Psych community. If you'd like to show your support, or if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our emails, and don't forget you can listen to full episodes on Spotify.